Vintage and Legacy Magic.
They like Eternal.
Yes. Travis on your right-hand side, 5-0 with Death and Taxes. This is a disruption / beatdown mono white deck, for those of you not familiar. Thalia, Flicker Wisp, Phyrexian Revoker, and Caracas being the primary forms of disruption. So it's got fast clock and some hateful 1- and 2-mana creatures to try to fight the unfair decks.
Going to start off with a Flagstones or Trocaire to get things started. Will Mr. Thomas, a Forest followed up by a Utopia Sprawl for Jeff Pulls. I'm really interested to see exactly how this deck is going to go. Utopia Sprawl is going to pick a color here, and as you see, Jeff is going to pass that over. This is test number 1 for the directors.
And this deck has a lot of ways to basically soft lock someone.
Yes.
It can play Solitary Confinement with a card draw in play. A lot of decks just outright can't beat that. Additionally, you have Elephant Grass with all the mana generation that this deck is capable of. Elephant Grass also locks out a lot, or effectively locks out a lot of creature decks as well.
This is one of the better cards in the matchup in Thalia, as it's going to make all the enchantments cost a little bit more, kind of negating the mana advantage that you do generate. But oftentimes we see a card like Gaia's Cradle in this format. Well, enchantments have a version of their own, and that one is Serra's Sanctum, a 4-of in Paula's deck.
Not quite the same robust tournament history as Gaia's Cradle or the even more busted Tolarian Academy, but Serra's Sanctum has been fueling Enchantress strategies for as long as it's been printed. Printed in the same set alongside Argothian Enchantress and Ursa Saga that opened up a lot of this deck building space.
Now that's a cycle of lands, right? So there's Cradle, there's Academy, there's Sanctum.
There is Shivan Gorge and Phyrexian Tower.
Now those two may not be as good.
It's not the tightest cycle. You know, Cradle, Sanctum, and Academy are all obviously the same thing at a particular card type in play.
Yeah.
Tower and Shivan Gorge are kind of off doing their own thing.
Flicker Wisp with a little bit of disruption here, going to rotate out that Forest for a moment, which means Utopia Sprawl is going to fall off, and now the Forest is going to come back. So this is actually a really good start here from Thomas. His disruption is really online and being super annoying.
And this is kind of a quintessential Death and Taxes start. Nothing that's going on is terribly impressive in its own right, but there's a good mixture of pressure and disruption going on.
So Thalia did come across for 2. Paulus is at 18 right now, but some more damage may be on the way. But looks like it might be time to cast an enchantment, and it is. So it's going to be an Abundant Growth, a card I have not seen for a little while, but it's going to allow Jeff to draw a couple of cards here. So
I believe it was
going to draw.
A player during block constructed a little bit because the mana fixing was quite poor in that format.
That is correct. That is where you did see it, and it did cantrip. I remember the first time I read this card, I thought it was a Wild Growth that added any color and cantripped. That's not the case.
Yes.
That would be too good, as we do see a Gitaxian Probe here. Going to reveal a hand of Mangara, a Flicker Wisp, a Stoneforge Mystic, and a Swords of Plowshares, excuse me. Actually a pretty good hand, because he has like the Mangara combo online soon. Flicker Wisp can be annoying again by removing that Abundant Growth if you would like, but it also adds 3 power to the board, and Stoneforge Mystic, oddly enough, might be one of the worst cards in his hand.
Yeah, it's not clear if Jeff is sandbagging his other sources of mana or actually missing a second color, but that second Flicker Wisp could be relevant depending on if that's really Jeff's only source of non-green mana.
So let's see what Travis can do this go around. That Thalia is still tapped, already ready to go in the red zone, but it'll be moving in there momentarily. I do promise you that. And in it comes along Flicker Wisp in the air. It's funny because I actually think that Thalia is a gigantic problem for this Enchantress deck, but if there is no Thalia, the Enchantress deck gets to really just kind of do what it wants.
I suspect Jeff may have already won this game had Thalia not been in the equation.
Yeah. Any blocks to be had? I'd be surprised if there were. I think Jeff is just going to take the 5, and we'll see what Thomas does have for his turn. Looks like we're going to take a momentary pause and play and see an attack here. Okay. And Jeff says, all right, I'll take the 5. Continue along.
Perhaps some confusion because that Gitaxian Probe had to be alternate cast last turn for a mana.
So now a little damage from the Horizon Canopy here for Thomas. Other than that, we'll pass the turn back, and wants to get the Mangara combo online, which actually will be difficult for Paul to beat. A lot of Death and Taxes decks have removed that combo from their deck. We see Thomas does have access to a couple copies of Mangara, 3 actually in his.
Yeah. So this plus Flicker Whips represents a lot of removal, either of mana or whatever development happens.
Yeah, I mean, same
for
thing with
Trevor's turn.
Caracas, too.
So this puts Jeff under a lot of pressure to do something very powerful this turn, and it's not clear that he can because, again, Thalia is constricting a lot of his explosiveness.
Sarah's Sanctum shows up now, which is a juicy Wasteland target. Now this, probably going to cost an extra mana because of Thalia, depending on what it is. You do see the Sanctum. It's Gaia's Cradle for enchantments, which is a pretty sweet card, especially when everything gets online. It generates a whole bunch of mana. You just end up drawing a bunch of cards when you have Argothian Enchantress and Enchantress's presence in play. So you can actually kind of go nuclear like we see elves do.
Absolutely, yes.
Now here's an Enchantress's presence, which is going to cost 4 mana. But it will allow Paulus to draw a card because he has Angarthian Enchantress in play. So there's your trigger. There's your card draw. Already played a land for the turn. You already played the Sanctum.
Yep.
Yep. And just passes the turn back. So Thomas is going to untap quickly. He's going to take a draw. And if you're ever wondering why people play Thalia, this is like the exact reason.
Yeah.
You can see exactly how good this card is being this game.
There are so many decks in Legacy that are built around a saturation of cheap spells. Brainstorm plus Ponder plus other stuff is the base for a million different decks, from combo to the aggro tempo decks as well. And Enchantress is just another deck that's caught up in the Thalia buzzsaw.
Yeah. There is the Guardian of Thraben. Very, very powerful human soldier that is really having a dramatic effect on this game. And again, if that card was not there, I truly believe that Jeff Wallace would be going absolutely bonkers and maybe have already won this game.
Yeah, I think we would be going into the sideboards right now.
Yeah. This draw is good. It's just a little too slow. And now Mangara's effect is going to happen here. And the thing that you can do with Mangara is you activate this, you choose your target. With that on the stack, you bounce Mangara. So it's basically a reusable Vindicate. It's a little bit slow, but if it does get online, it's actually quite powerful. Now here, it becomes, I believe, a Phyrexian Revoker. I wonder what you name in this matchup.
In the dark, with no information, I would probably name Sterling Grove.
Okay.
But, you know, you're guessing, obviously. Enchantress decks could be quite customized.
Yeah. Now, oh, wow. I was going to say, the one card that you would actually want to name, if you know the deck list, is Helm of Obedience. And that is what Travis Thomas chose. So maybe these guys are friends, maybe they're enemies, or maybe they just know each other on the source.
Well, did Jeff begin to cast a recipe last turn and then take it back?
I'm not sure. I didn't really get a good look at that.
I know he kind of pump faked a little bit.
Here comes another Enchantress. I wonder if he can get this off the board. I guess he has so he has an Emrakul he could win with. He also has one Oblivion Ring in his deck too. Sterling Grove, your guess, and that's normally found in a lot of Enchantress decks. Actually not in here.
Yes.
Here's a Miri's Guile. Haven't seen that one for a while.
I believe is that the original Divining Top?
I believe so. But this one does draw cards because it's an Enchantress shell. See, Thomas is going to take a draw step here. All right, it's time to get in the red zone, right? Everybody get in. There's a Flicker Wisp. There comes Thalia. Here comes Revoker. This is a lethal attack at the moment. Argothian Enchantress is going to get in front of anything but the flyer.
Yeah, it has to be a chump block on one of the 2 power creatures.
So Jeff is going to go down to 1. See what the follow-up's going to be. It's going to be Flicker Wisp again. Look at this annoying little white weenie deck causing all the problems. That's what I always think of when I see Death and Taxes in action. It's just annoying. Everything that it does. It doesn't do anything impressive. It's just annoying.
Because if you're playing a creature deck, Mother Runes and Stoneforge Mystic are really annoying things to play against, especially in tandem with one another.
Yeah.
You're playing these combo decks. The Thalia, Flicker Wisp, Phyrexian Revoker type of action is the annoying stuff.
And so you see this interaction here where Flicker Wisp comes into play, and it bounces out another Flicker Wisp. So at the end of turn, Flicker Wisp comes Flicker Wisp's trigger goes on, it brings back the other Flicker Wisp, and then that Flicker Wisp is going to remove a card, but that card won't come back until the next end step. So it's kind of complicated, but what's going to end up happening is that Serra Sanctum is not going to come back until Jeff's end step. That's when it'll come back into play, and that doesn't matter then.
And it's really important because if Jeff was going to go off at all this turn, it was clearly going to involve a lot of Serra Sanctum mana.
Yes. So take a draw here after resolving Miri's Guile. We do see Flicker Wisp, the 3/1 elemental, one of my favorite cube cards.
A lot of
Which is
things you can
crazy to
synergize
say.
with, yeah.
Yeah, but that card's good in cube. A Flicker Effect it's so underrated.
Yeah.
You know, they tried to actually push Flicker Effects in Adversary Sword with Cloud Shift and some other stuff. Didn't really work out as much as they probably hoped. It's just an Elephant Grass, but would have been sweet if it worked out.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Jeff, it appears that he has Solitary Confinement in hand to potentially lock this game up. But the white sources of mana in his hand are Windswept Heath, although it does look like he just pulled up a Serra Sanctum. So.
All right. Still too short for mana from that, right? Because he's got he's got 3. Oh, okay, all right, take it back. All right, so there's that. So here's a Confinement. Now, that Confinement isn't long for this world because of the Mangara combo, but it'll buy some time.
And it doesn't actually need to be in play for that long. Again, Jeff is really starting to develop his board here. Starting to make a lot of mana off of that Sanctum. A lot of things can still go wrong. You know, the Confinement can get Flicker Wisp out. Mangara if he doesn't find enough tools in time, but Jeff is starting to get his head above sand a little bit here.
Yeah. So we're going to have a Flicker Wisp trigger resolve at the end. And we're going to see Serra Sanctum come back, and he's going to have to lose one of those because of Legendary rule. So Solitary Confinement, you guys do see on the screen there, the first Legacy deck I've ever played, designed by Jerry Thompson. That plus Life on the Loam was a lot of fun in trying to kill opponents with Mirthra's Factories.
My batting average against that card historically has not been high.
Pretty low?
It's been pretty low.
Yeah. I love to put people in the Loam Confinement lock. You see a discard here of Helm of Obedience, and I would oftentimes either kill him with Mishra's Factory or there was one Genesis to just return and discard.
Just so many grinds.
Yeah, again, my earlier days. This is like when you used to play Thieving Magpie.
Right.
Just I had 4 counterspell in my deck. It's just earlier days. Here's Mangara. This is going to be able to get Travis out of these problems that have arisen here. But for right now, he can't deal any damage because Jeff is in the bubble that is Solitary Confinement. So all Travis, I believe, can do is just pass the turn back.
So Jeff has to either find an extra copy of Solitary Confinement or somehow kind of go off this turn or remove Mangara from play. None of these are easy things to do.
Elephant Grass. Does he want to pay the upkeep on this? See, there's some triggers on the stack here. Miri's Guile, Solitary Confinement, and Elephant Grass are all things that are on the stack at the moment. So you see he's going to stack it so that he puts Solitary Confinement on, then Elephant Grass, then Miri's Guile. So that means Miri's Guile is going to resolve first.
He can check out the action.
Oh, yeah.
He can scope the goods before deciding what he wants to do with the Elephant Grass.
That's right. So we'll resolve the first Sensei's Divining Top. Put those cards back. Now Elephant Grass is on the stack. Does he want to pay the upkeep? The answer is yes. Now Confinement's on the stack. Does he want to pay the upkeep on that? Which would be discarding a card.
I would assume so. He's got to have some extra stuff to be working with here. And it is a mana for Serra Sanctum also, so.
Yeah. Jeff looking through just a fistful of cards. Jeez. And he is going to discard Green Sun Zenith. Zenith, the card I really, really, really like in this deck, just because it's basically Argethian Enchantress 5 through 8.
Adds a lot of redundancy.
A little surprised not to see a Dryad Arbor in the list. Could use it for acceleration, too. But his mana base is 10 Forest, a Caracas, a Plains, 4 Windswept Heath, and 4 Serra Sanctum. So, time to add some mana with Serra Sanctum. 4 to be exact. So he's going to use this. Here's Utopia Sprawl onto the Forest. He's starting to make his way through this Thalia.
Yeah. The issue is, has too much damage already been done? Because right now that Solitary Confinement is the only thing keeping him from dying.
Yeah. So we'll see Utopia Sprawl get cast. He's going to choose a color, of course. All that jazz. And more importantly, he's going to get to cantrip twice because of Enchantress's presence and Argothian Enchantress itself.
I think there may be a dispute here on if Jeff waited too long to announce the Enchantress triggers.
Yeah, we'll see. Because those two cards are actually kind of interesting with how they work. Because one of them is when you cast an enchantment, and then when an enchantment comes into play. So, I mean, you have to be very cognizant of how to resolve these cards and how to resolve the card drawing on these cards as well. And now here is Argothian Enchantress. Because the same thing can be said about, you know, one thing with a deck like this, I think of it like Combo Elves too. With Combo Elves, with Nettle Sentinel, you can't forget.
Right.
You know? Here's a Rest in Peace. Bunch of triggers. Hit 1. Hit 2. Hit 3.
And usually you can sort of semi-shortcut / blur together because it doesn't matter, you know, which one happens on announcement and which one happens on Revolution. But it seemed like Jeff waited quite a while there with his Utopia Sprawl in play.
I agree.
Thinking about other things before
I agree.
announcing the trigger.
I was going to pass the turn back. So he's moved his board along a little bit further. Thomas going to draw a card. Draws a Wasteland. Wasteland's a huge draw there. Going to take a look at Solitary Confinement, see how this works. Now he's going to take a look at Elephant Grass and see how that works. That's basically just a propaganda.
Yeah. Mangara takes care of the Solitary Confinement. He can pay for the Elephant Grass. He has an unblockable creature.
So Mangara, activate, target, hold priority, bounce my Mangara. So we see the combo in play again. And then going to pay the 2, we believe. He says attack step.
Travis just making sure there's nothing on board he's missing, obviously. There's a million kind of bizarre permanents in play.
Yeah, if you haven't played against this deck before, you would easily be confused about what's going on. So Flickerwist is going to attack for the win. So Travis Thomas is going to win in game number 1 there over Jeff Paulus. You see a handshake between the two players. Mr. Thomas does win game number 1 over Death and Taxes, probably thinking, I've never played against a deck like this before.
Yeah, you can tell, you know, you see Travis there laughing and shaking his head. You know, like, I didn't exactly know what was going on there, but wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So we're going to go to the sideboards here. We'll take a look at Jeff's first, which I do have in front of me. He's got 3 copies of Carpet of Flowers, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Gaddock Teague, 3 Stony Silence, 4 Leyline and Sanctity, and 2 copies of Oblivion Ring. I like O-Ring a lot in this matchup. You know, just a removal spell, take care of Thalia, which is kind of annoying, things of that nature. I think it'd actually be pretty good here. Leyline, not particularly important. Same thing can be said for Stony Silence. Gaddock Teague, I don't think plays a role in this, you know, Death and Taxes is a very cheap deck as far as casting cost is concerned. And then Surgical and Carpet of Flowers, just not a lot of cards for this particular matchup. And to be fair, I actually think this matchup is probably pretty good for Jeff, outside of a Thalia.
Thalia is a disaster. The rest of Travis's deck does not seem very good. Although in the sideboard, I'm sure he wasn't actually gunning specifically for Enchantress coming in this tournament, but he is equipped with a lot of very good sideboard cards. He has 3 copies of Aethersworn Candace he can bring in. He has 2 Enlightened Tutors, which can find Aethersworn Candace, or individual copies of Oblivion Ring and Thorn of Amethyst. So he actually has an additional Thalia effect that he can now tutor for in his sideboard. I'm sure Thorn of Amethyst is more dedicated for decks like Storm, for example, but it's going to be excellent here as well. As Jeff's deck is, you know, there's a lot of parallels to Elves. He tries to get a density of stuff set up, and then the cards become free to cast because you're getting the mana back with Serra Sanctum. You're drawing cards the whole way, and if you've seen Elves go off, the Enchantress deck is a little bit slower going off. It's a little bit more stable when it actually is going off because Argothian Enchantress and such are harder to kill than random Elves that can be bolted and plowed and whatnot.
Sure.
But there's a lot of parallels in the way the board sort of exponentially develops for an Enchantress deck.
We'll see if Jeff can get it going, because he tried to get it going that game. Took him a little while. Thalia caused a lot of problems. But again, as we have mentioned multiple times here, just imagine if Thalia wasn't in play that game. Now, of course, it's in your deck so that you can draw it. But imagine if it's not there, all of the crazy stuff we would have seen there. And I think it would have been pretty crazy.
Yeah. And if you had to draw up the textbook Death and Taxes game, it would have looked something like that.
Yes.
Travis never really did anything that objectively powerful, just played some utility creatures and attacked. But the text box on all of this stuff really mattered in keeping Jeff on his back foot just long enough for Travis to squeak through the game before Jeff was able to overpower him with all of his cards and mana.
Yeah. So we will be underway for another game here momentarily. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan starts the Games Open Series here in Orlando, Florida. We do appreciate you guys joining us all weekend long. And, of course, the tweets are coming in about something with a wheel and a cart.
Yeah.
So we are checking them at SCG Live, hashtag SCGORL. As we are in round 6 of 9, we're making our way through today, working our way towards crowning a champion and giving away 3, 6, and 12 months of premium. Don't forget about that in our elimination rounds. And we'll see what's going to win Legacy this week. And again, we saw Kenan Haas win the first Legacy tournament of this year in Indianapolis with Jun Depths. Doesn't look like we have a ton of that in the room this go around, but we've definitely got some innovative decks here.
Yeah, it just, I speak about this a lot. The Legacy metagame is just not very fluid because there's so many expensive cards. And so even if you thought that deck was really sweet, which I thought it was.
I thought it was great.
Still 2 Tabernacles and a bunch of duels and a bunch of fetch lands. Not necessarily something that someone can just say, all right, well, I'll just play this in Orlando next week.
Yeah.
I had Rug Delver all built, but I guess I'll switch to this.
Yeah. You don't see those kind of switches immediately in Legacy. It's just not something that really happens.
Although it happens, slowly over time. I know there was momentum about Reanimator a couple of years ago.
Oh, goodness.
When there was a perception that was the best deck. And that was a deck with, 4 Force of Will, 4 Underground Sea, 4 Polluted Delta. By no means a Legacy budget deck.
Yeah.
But slowly over time, you started to see more and more of it at events.
Yeah.
Rug Delver's got a bunch of blue fetches and a bunch of blue duels and Tarmogoyf and Wasteland and Force of Will. And just over time, people slowly accumulate the cards. And so you see shifts more over a course of months or even years sometimes, rather than overnight.
Yeah, and one thing that we saw over the past 5 weeks here, Drew Levitt had been writing an article series on the premium side of Star City about how to get into Legacy, which has been a really fantastic read of just, obviously Legacy is an expensive format, but there are steps that you can take and ways to budget your finances that you can actually get into the format where, again, it might not be as expensive as you think. It's very daunting to just say, hey, I need $2,000 to buy a Rug Delver deck. But it's, steps and, the things that Drew laid out in his article, it really shows a great way to go about getting into the different kind of decks that you can play in Legacy, which I thought it was a really job well done by someone who knows Legacy quite well.
Yeah, the biggest thing is getting the staples.
Yes.
Once you have duels, wastelands, and forces, and fetches, that's the biggest chunk for most decks.
Yeah, you're in then.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, of course, a large investment, not saying it's not, but those have been sort of the gold standard cards of Magic for the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. I mean, they've done nothing but appreciate. They've been stable sources of value. And the rest of the stuff is easier to acquire because it's more narrow.
Yeah.
Even the expensive cards are a little bit easier to find and trade for because they only go into so many decks.
People think Legacy is expensive. Wait till we start running Vintage Opens.
The Vintage Open?
No, wait till we start running Vintage Opens.
We're going to start running Vintage Opens?
Sure. Let's do a Vintage Open sometime.
Welcome to New Jersey, where 17 people have shown up. We'll be having 4 rounds of Swiss, cut to top 8.
Yep. Buckle up. We're going to take a break since the game ended on turn 1. We'll see you guys back here in an hour.
Yeah. No, Vintage is great. I enjoy it. It's like a history book of Magic, basically.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's only so many copies of those cards that exist.
Vintage is the one format that I've only played in 2 Vintage tournaments in my life. And it's kind of the one format that I've just never really got the opportunity to play. I played a ton of Extended, obviously, when I was in college because it was a PTQ format. Play a bunch of Modern because I love playing Tron, but I just think Modern's great. Legacy I love. Standard I always play because it's Standard. The one format I never have gotten to play is Vintage, so I can only imagine how difficult covering Vintage would be, which would be, a little bit because there's a lot going on.
There's definitely a Vintage scene in Southern California, so I've occasionally gotten to pick up some decks and play some games, and I am a fish out of water with those cards, I'll tell you what. It's been a long time.
The first Vintage deck I ever played, very quickly, a deck that Jerry gave me, because Jerry and I were really good friends during college, and it had Gift Given in it, and he didn't tell me what to search for. That's not cool. Gift Given in Vintage, I had no idea what to do. I remember the first one I cast took me like 7 minutes.
I think that if you get Lotus, Yawgmoth's Will, Ancestral Time Walk, it's hard for things to go too badly.
Well, my deck had a Recoup.
Nice.
And there was a Recoup kill.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah, you got Recoup. I can't even remember now.
There was like a Storm kill with Recoup, and there was also a way that you could, do it so that you could recoup into a Tinker for like a Darksteel Colossus or something.
Or maybe you could get Key Vault in the same shot or something like that.
I don't know if that deck had that. Yeah, I think maybe Time Vault was banned or the errata wasn't on it or something. I don't remember, but I just remember he gave me the deck list. He's like, here, have fun, play this. It's really sweet. The goal of the deck is to do these 2 things. And he's like, and Gifts Given is broken. I'm like, awesome, let's do this. So I cast the Gifts Given, and I was just like, wow. I could get a deep analysis. That already sounds great because they can't get it right with that.
It's already free.
Yeah, they can't do it right with deep analysis. Okay, so that's always going to be in my pile. Okay, what else am I going to do? Ooh, recoup as flashback. Perfect. And yeah, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. But it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Travis Thomas takes a mulligan. He doesn't look happy. That's a deep breath. And a man that looks like he's going to mulligan to me.
Looks like one planes and not a lot of action.
Yeah, he's going down to 5. Any vintage tournaments for you?
Well, I actually started playing Magic at a time that I think predates Type 2 as a format. It was back when Type 1 was the thing that existed. Or it was right on the fence. It was maybe right when Type 2 became a thing. And so, actually, my play circle was me and Eugene Harvey, Adam Horvath, who, you know, another person with over 100 lifetime pro points, I believe, and a couple other locals. And we had semi-powered Type 1 decks. Like, I had a couple random boxes. I didn't have everything.
Okay.
And those were kind of the games we played. And Eugene and I actually spent one summer, basically, we each had our versions of the deck built, the Brian Weissman, Mana Drain, JMJ Tome Disrupting Scepter deck.
Yeah, sure.
His kill was, he had Moat, Sarah Angel, and I had the Abyss Deadly Insect, but we otherwise had the same deck. And we basically spent the summer alternating between playing the deck mirror for 4 hours and then going out and playing basketball down the street for a couple hours.
Very nice.
And those were, yeah, some of the happiest days of my life, definitely.
Go play outside. All right, let's go play some basketball.
Yeah, mix it up.
All right, we're going to play inside now.
Yeah, we're just going to Mana Drain Disrupting Scepter each other for a couple more hours and then we'll go outside, play some hoops.
Mom, I just drained his Deadly Insect. I'll be outside in a minute. You see, Amir's Kyle is going to resolve here for Paulus. A Plains and an Aether Vial. So a good card to undo a mulligan here for Thomas. So, gonna look at the top 3. Emerald Cruel among them. That one's gonna go to the bottom.
I think we're gonna shuffle that one away.
Yes. Windswept Heath of the draw. Gonna sacrifice that, Will Paulus. So he's gonna go down to 19.
Jeff Sake is actually surprisingly disciplined about Wasteland. I mean, he's able to play so many, you know, Utopia Sprawl type of cards where he doesn't really have to expose himself very much to Wasteland if he chooses not to.
I mean, he opens himself up to Port, obviously, which is a card that Death and Taxes has, but, you know, the fact that he gets to dodge Wasteland is a big deal.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Abundant Growth. Yeah, that
Abundant.
one does cantrip. Utopia Sprawl, however, does not. He'll choose a color on that. We'll find out what that color is, and then we will progress over to Mr. Thomas's turn, who's going to put a counter on his vial.
Whoa, buddy, slow down. You don't have an Enchantress in play yet, but that one just cycles itself.
There's a Wasteland. He does name green with Utopia Sprawl. And he's just going to pass the turn back here. So Paulus is going to untap. He's going to have access to 3 mana. He's going to use his Miri's Guile. Take a look at the cards here. You see Rest in Peace, a Serra Sanctum, some other stuff going on. He already has 2 Serra Sanctums in his hand, so he can go a little crazy here in a minute.
You can see Jeff's pace of play a little bit quicker here, not being grinded down by Thalia.
Yeah.
He just has free reign to do whatever.
Here's 3 mana. Is this a Presence? Presence would be so good right now. He's not sure. Which one does he want to play? He's going to Zenith for 2.
Okay.
So he wants to go get an Argothian.
So this is slightly better insofar as he gets to keep the Enchantress's presence in his hand to trigger the Argothian Enchantress, which doesn't work in reverse. It stunts his development a little bit since he has Serra Sanctum in hand, so he holds off on adding 1 more enchantment this turn.
Yes.
But this is a little more net efficient as he now gets to draw a card off the Enchantress's presence he plays next turn.
I mean, he hasn't even played a land yet this turn, so there's a Sanctum that's going to tap for 3 white. Now there's a Rest in Peace, so he's going to get the cantrip, assuming he stacks his triggers correctly. So there's that. Take a draw. Let's remove those graveyards. All right. It's got 1 white mana floating, just pass the turn back. Wasteland's going to take care of the Sanctum, which Jeff is perfectly fine with because he has a backup Sanctum in his hand. Thomas is going to take a draw. He draws a Port, which is actually a pretty good draw in this situation.
Yeah, I was going to say that Aether Vial not that great on a 5-card hand, but now how good Rashad and Port is going to be in this game. That Vial is going to be very helpful.
Port's going to take care of the land with the Utopia Sprawl on it. Mirror's Guile trigger is going to resolve. Take a look at the 3 cards. Sensei's Divine Top Style. You see a Plains, another copy of Rest in Peace over there. And one that he wants to put on top, I think it's the Solitary Confinement that he wants to draw for the turn. And that is what he draws. So he's considering playing the Sanctum, and he does. Sanctum can tap for 4. There's a Sprawled, Abundant Growth, a Mirror's Guile, and a Rest in Peace. So 4 white mana, plus the 1 green. Enchantress's Presence. Gonna trigger the Argothian Enchantress, draw a card, pass the turn back. Sarah's Avenger cheated into play.
Aether Vial, Sarah's Avenger, one of the more charming combos of the Death and Taxes deck.
See, Thalia has drawn here for Thomas. Wasteland number 2, gonna take care of Sarah's Sanctum. Attack here for 3 in the air. Gonna put Paulus down to 16, and a Thalia did just show up for Thomas as well. So things are starting to get a little more difficult here for the Enchantress player, but he's actually gonna stay with Port here instead of playing Thalia. How do you like that?
I think I would have played Thalia this turn. Thalia does probably roughly as much to constrict mana this turn as the Port does, and it frees him up so much more going forward to have Thalia in play and then be able to Port.
Mirror's Guile trigger is going to resolve, play a Plains, Will Paulus. He's going to tap 2 mana. This is another copy of Rest in Peace. That's going to draw 2 cards. So 1 Presence, 2. I think another copy of Enchantress Presence, pass the turn back. Again, all he's looking for right now is David Mind Sensor is going to come into play through the Vial. All he wants right now is another Sanctum. Unfortunately for him, he's gone through 2.
Yeah.
Horizon Canopy in Thomas's hand right now. It's almost like he didn't mulligan to 5. He's really competing here.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, I mean, it really didn't even open up the game with very much in the way of disruption.
Here's an attack for 5 in the air. Paulus is going to go down to 11. It looks like he might do some vialing here. Feels like maybe we have a Flicker Wisp in hand. We do. Wow, we. I don't even know if he wants to Flicker Wisp here. Because one thing he can do is he can clear end of turn triggers and then Flicker Wisp and bounce out the land with Utopia Sprawl if he'd like to. So he doesn't have to do it in his main phase. One thing that you can actually do is you can clear end of turn triggers and then activate the Flicker Wisp, or activate the Vial, put the Flicker Wisp into play, Flicker Wisp whatever you want to, and then it'll actually come back on Paulus's end step. Now that Mind Sensor is going to stay tapped. You see Thomas is just trying to figure out, am I supposed to Flicker Wisp now? And if I do, what am I supposed to target?
And this is one of the challenges of Legacy, is there's so many different decks. A lot of the fringe decks are actually quite complicated and use cards you haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure if Thomas right now is playing against Sneak and Show or something, he would have a really good sense of what the stuff he needs to play around is and what the correct play is. But he's playing against some uncommonly seen cards.
So he's going to go with Thalia this go around. And this is kind of what you mentioned. Had he played Thalia last turn,
Yeah.
then he'd actually have access to Port. So now Flicker Wisp, he's still trying to figure out when he's going to Vial it in. So he says, all right, your Mirror's Guile trigger is fine. 2, 3. Yeah, I think what he's doing is after that resolves, I have an effect, and that's going to be Flicker Wisp. Target your land that has Abundant Growth, or excuse me, that has a Utopia Sprawl on it, so that you lose the Sprawl. You can have the land with Abundant Growth. Pulse is going to draw a card here. That's 1 less enchantment in play, though, if he does find a Sarah Sanctum. This is a Forest. That's a passing of the turn.
That was a pretty critical turn there.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff was unable to play Solitary Confinement that turn because he didn't have enough mana. Only 3 mana in play, and Thalia was preventing it from being cast.
And Port will actually continue to constrict him, too. The combination of Port and Thalia really tough. But this isn't the first time we've seen this combination really mess with combo decks like this. And this is 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's not lethal. It sure is close. He's going to chump block. I think he just drew a Ratchet Bomb.
There's 1 in the sideboard. I guess he's brought in to clear out Argothian Enchantresses, potentially.
Yeah. Now the question is, do you want a Ratchet Bomb or do you want a Port? I feel like you want a Port.
With presenting lethal next turn, I want to just use Rashad and Port.
Yeah. And he does pass the turn back. Mirror's Guile. Going to resolve this trigger. See if Paulus can find anything. Port's going to tap the land that has Abundant Growth on it. Now, he could have tapped the white mana. But I guess Abundant Growth would have taken care of that problem. So there's a Windswept Teeth. Down to 2 goes Paulus.
And this is why you saw Jeff chump block last turn, even though...
Ooh, but there's an even... Oh, no, that's... Whew.
Found it.
That is huge.
But anyhow, well, if you're wondering, well, why is Jeff chump blocking this turn? The Death and Taxes deck doesn't have any burn in it. It's because he wanted to leave himself the ability to draw a fetch land to be able to fetch for the additional mana he needed.
And the reason you look to the top 4, again, even Mind Sensor, its text wasn't really coming into play during this entire game, but for that fetch land, it certainly did. Paulus was able to find a land in the top 4, and now he's able to play Solitary Confinement. And so now he's going to draw a card off of Enchantress Presence, and now he's going to try to establish the hard lock here of not letting Thomas deal any damage. Now, don't forget, he can't draw a card, and he has to discard a card every turn to stay in the bubble. So what he really needs is a second way of drawing cards.
He really needs to find Enchantress's Presence.
Yes.
That would allow him to draw next turn and then set up each cantrip, you know, each enchantment going forward being a double cantrip. This is also, oddly enough, where that Ratchet Bomb is going to be really valuable.
Yeah.
Because Ratchet Bomb threatening to blow up Solitary Confinement is another thing that Jeff has to work around.
The tough thing here for Thomas, and there's a couple of things that are difficult here for Thomas. You know, he wants to be able to leave Port mana open to mess with mana. He drew a Thorn of Amethyst. This card is actually great right now, too. This is going to make everything cost even more. And he's going to add 1 mana. He's got to pay 1 more for that because of the Thalia. But now Thorn makes things incredibly difficult.
So there's effectively 2 Thalias in play.
Yes.
A Port, and Jeff has to try to maintain a Solitary Confinement through all of this.
So we're going to put some triggers on. Resolve the Guile. Not that he actually gets to draw these cards. How are we going to pay for the confinement? He's got a couple cards in hand. I think he needs to.
Also, he does have Enchantress's Presence, but now mana is also going to be a really constricting factor going forward.
So he discards a card. Here's 5 mana. This is an Enchantress's Presence. So he'll draw. This was important, as you mentioned. That's step 1 in the right direction. Pass the turn back. Thomas will untap. He'll take a draw step. Knows that he can't deal any damage. Now, there are some cards that straight up win the game for Thomas here. Flicker Wisp, get the Solitary Confinement out of the way, kill you. That'll get it done. If he has access to Oblivion Ring, that'll get it done.
Well, Oblivion Ring is no longer remotely castable now.
Oh, I guess that's true, yeah. Yeah, he's far away from that. It's actually going to cost 5 mana. Trying to figure out if he's supposed to cast Ratchet Bomb or leave Port open. Don't forget, Thomas Mulligan to 5 this game.
Yep. And the answer is, since we know Jeff's hand, he needs to be leaving up Port.
Constrict that mana. He's got a Phyrexian Revoker. I think he's trying to figure out what am I supposed to name. Last game he named Helm of Obedience. Helm is fine here. It's not all that exciting. Paulus is 1 land away from being able to even cast the card because of Thorn and Dahlia being in play. He's going to go with...
Well, he can't even cast the Ratchet Bomb, right? Because there's a Thorn.
Yeah, he's actually... Yeah, he just has to... The only play he can make is the Revoker.
Unless there's
all these things that make making things cost more. And he names Helm again with Revoker. I'm only thinking of it in context of the fact that all of Just stuff's going to cost more than on the other side, which obviously it's a symmetrical effect. So we can resolve the Guile first. So you see Paulus. Did he discard? I do not believe that he did. Now he does. Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't drawn a card.
Yeah, he hasn't drawn a card.
You know, he's fine.
Three mana. That's a Wild Growth. Draw 2. 1, 2. He needs lands.
Starting to get a little momentum here.
Uh-huh. That's his land for the turn. Yep, and that's enough because Wild Growth does add mana. 2, so Sprawl comes in. He passes the turn back. Boy, he is fighting.
And he doesn't have, you know, that much rope to work with here, of course, as if that confinement ever goes away.
Utopia Sprawl came and named a green. Oh. I think the draw was Oblivion Ring, but that, of course that doesn't do it. It's too expensive.
By several mana.
Yeah. I think Thomas is resigned to just porting him this turn.
Well, there's nothing else he can really do. He's not even allowed to cast the Ratchet Bomb or the Oblivion Ring in his hand.
So Mirror's Guile. All right, tap your land that has Utopia Sprawl on it. All right, confinement, discard. Also discard, Miri's Guile. Does not draw a card, because he can't. He has another copy of Enchantress's Presence in his hand. 3. That's going to be a Wild Growth. Draw 2. 1, 2. Elephant Grass among them. I think the other card was a copy of Miri's Guile, but he already has one of those, and those don't get better in multiples. So this will be a 3-mana spell. That's an Elephant Grass. Draw 2.
That prevents Travis from, I guess, no, because he has Vile set to 3, so
Yep.
the Elven Grass doesn't really prevent anything.
Flicker Wisp is still lights out. Mangara is obviously quite good too right now. Travis hit that card back. That's pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah,
Port's
pretty
not
good.
bad here.
He could cast Ratchet Bomb now.
Yes. I think that he still should just wait and port and try to, I guess at this point, the Oblivion Ring, if that's his out here, means that Elephant Grass actually does matter if Jeff chooses to upkeep it.
Sure.
So he's ordering his trigger here. I'm thinking he's going to want to Guile first before he determines whether or not he wants to pay for Elephant Grass.
And that's what he does. He wants to get a good idea. Take a look. See what he can find. Ports. You want to, of course, tap the ones that are going to add extra mana, so no reason to tap the one with Abundant Growth. Any other ones that do have enchantments on them are just fine. Going to take one there from the Rising Canopy. Travis points to that. But we're a little ways away from his life total mattering. Elephant Grass, the upkeep is going to be paid. So let's see if we can generate some more stuff.
Time also starting to become a constraint here.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. You see the clock there in the middle of the screen, 8:38 and going down. With Paulus down a game here, if he's able to win this one, it's rather unlikely he'll be able to tie things up. There's Miri's Guile, and he cantrip 2 times. And pass the turn back, so again, still trying to make up some ground. Thomas will draw a card. Is it Flicker Wisp?
Travis really slow rolling himself with his draws.
I don't think it is. Passes back, same song and dance. I think Pulse is going to stack his effects the exact same way as he did last time. Going to resolve Miri's Guile first.
The Elephant Grass needs to tick up there.
Those 2 lands will get tapped again. Grass is going to bite the dust, has no interest in paying the upkeep because he feels he needs the mana. Confinement, time to discard. Or is it?
Oh, good. Although getting rid of that Elephant Grass is a really big deal, as now if Travis draws a land next turn, then he can pay for Oblivion Ring through the Thorn and through the Thalia, get rid of the Solitary Confinement and attack for lethal.
Yes.
Assuming Jeff finds no additional protection.
There's a Sprawl. Draw 2. Serra's Sanctum was found in there. Okay.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mana if I'm counting correctly.
Let's have some fun. Yeah, he's got a bunch.
12 is a lot.
Yeah. There's another copy of Confinement. He's going to draw 2 cards. What's it? No, I hope he draws 2 cards. There we go. 1, 2. Rest in peace among them.
You just found a Helm, right? So that's just it?
Revoker's on Helm.
Oh, correct.
Yep. We're not there yet. It looks like he has it looks like he has an Oblivion Ring in his hand, but I don't know if he's going to have enough mana. Even though he added 12, I don't know if he's going to have enough mana. Yeah, so here's this. Trigger twice. Stone takes care of Revoker. Okay. Or excuse me, Ring takes care of Revoker.
Attention Legacy Open players, that is the time of the round. After the player finishes your turn, they play the last 5 turns of your match.
So he's got 2 white. So Helm is going to cost 6 in this situation.
Yeah, you can't helm this turn, clearly.
You can't cast more enchantments, though, and that's fun.
I think he's pretty close to out of mana. I mean, factoring in that he only has access to 1. Moving around his dice there, not sure what he's representing.
Colors of mana.
No, I'm not sure what he's paying for.
Yeah,
here,
sure.
And I think he can afford to cast
He can cast a couple more spells.
another small spell.
Yeah, rest in peace, because it draws 2. So mana's going to be gone. 1, 2, elephant grass among them. Pass the turn back. All right, Thomas will untap, he'll draw. So Flicker Wisp doesn't do it now, correct? Because there's 2 confinements
Right,
in play?
backup confinement.
Okay. Thomas draws. Just trying to figure out if he needs to find it, what he can find to get out of this. Huh. Drew a Flicker
One
Wisp.
turn late. Although that it's possible that'll end up being good the following turn if Jeff only decides to keep the 1 confinement in play.
Yeah.
He cast the second one in part because he was just cycling.
Yeah.
But
So I think we're in the same situation here where you just tap the lands, right?
well, certainly Sarah Sanctum cannot be allowed to.
Yeah. You're not allowed to have fun with that. Trigger, trigger. Guile trigger. Definitely time to tap some lands. Tap your Sanctum. Oh, he's going to keep them both. Wow. Thought he might let one go. This is a bunch of mana. There's a Helm. Not yet, please. Flicker Wisp. Target Oblivion Ring. So he gets his Revoker back, but then the ring will come back.
Right.
And so that won't accomplish what he wants it to. It's a momentary delay.
Yeah, I do not believe this works the way that Travis wants it to.
Yeah, end of turn, this is going to come back. Kill that, and before you even get to untap, you can just kill him, right? Or you
Yes.
can mill him. Yeah. And on your upkeep, mill you. Yeah, all right, so that's game number 2. Another handshake between the 2. What you've got here, however, is a very long-winded, I believe, Patrick, a draw we're going to see here momentarily.
I mean, I guess both of these decks are theoretically capable of killing very quickly, undisrupted, but
Yeah.
given the pace of play, I think that is pretty unlikely. Actually, it appears that both players are resigned to a draw at this point.
Yeah,
because
that's what it looks like. I saw,
neither player's really going to the sideboard or communicating. So
yeah, saw another extension of the hand. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
are going to draw knowing that they do not have time to get things done. So it's not a loss for either one of them. For Jeff Paulus, by the skin of his teeth, he's able to get a draw out of this match as opposed to a loss. And so now both players are going to move on to 5-0-1 here.